Yeah.
Welcome back, beautiful, to She's Beyond Elevated with me, Dr. Kimberly Dunlap, the podcast where we talk about the things high achieving women rarely say out loud. And today's episode, you guys are in for such a treat. Today's episode is for the woman who looks successful, stable, accomplished, but feels tired in her spirit. The woman who's been staying in a career, in a role, in a version of herself far longer than her soul should have allowed her to stay. Right? This conversation is entitled The Emotional Cost of Staying Too Long. And that's too long in everything. But today we're targeting career. Right? And all I want you to do is just listen with honesty, no judgment, just pure awareness. And being aware is the first act of elevation for us all, right? So I'm joined today by Dr. Christiaan Oranje, who helps affluent, soul seeking women over 40, which is us ladies, who appear to have it all, yet quietly they feel empty. They feel unfulfilled and even struggle to maintain genuine happiness. So, Christian's work is deeply personal. His life unfolded in long periods beneath the surface, shaped by trauma early on, depression, addiction, and a persistent sense of not belonging, interrupted by moments of just experts and visible success. Now, outwardly, he's built an acclaimed career in theater, performing off Broadway in New York. Inwardly, however, he struggled with emptiness and unhappiness, even while in intensive therapy. So, by turning his life into a living laboratory, so to speak, Christian began unraveling the habits that once helped him survive and were no longer going to be enough. Later on, they were really imprisoning him. Now, today, he guides women back to aliveness, fulfillment, authentic joy, not just from theory, but from lived experience. So, Christian, I would love to welcome you to She's Beyond Elevated. And I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kimberly. And you know what? I really get the chills hearing you speak with it with such passion, and yeah,
Thank you. Thank
it
you.
really touches me. So yeah, I'd like to invite you, listeners, viewers, to go on a little adventure with me, a treasure hunt. And what I'm about to present is like putting a puzzle together. We have all these pieces here on the table, and with a box that has no picture on it, because you know what? This is life. And by slowly putting every piece in place, it becomes clear what all this is about. And with every treasure hunt, there's a map coming with it, a map on which you can see where the mountains are and the forest and the rivers. And there's the dotted line that shows you the path from where you currently are to the black cross where you find the treasure. Another way to say it is that I'd like to take you on a helicopter ride. And in doing so, you're able to oversee the territory that I'm going to talk about. And I feel it's important to offer you such a view because it will give you a better idea, a better understanding of what actually is happening nowadays, why it is happening, and how to best deal with it. This territory you're about to see can be summarized in what I call the triple dynamic, which is something that, to my knowledge, no one is speaking about in this way. This triple dynamic consists out of these three elements. Firstly, what is it that really happens when we numb or suppress uncomfortable feelings and thoughts? Secondly, how is life showing us what needs healing as we transition into a higher dimensional way of living? Thirdly, why is it that mindset and subconscious work often not anymore lead to lasting change? As you've said, Dr. Kimberly, I am primarily working with affluent, self-seeking women over 40 that have it all and feel empty, unfulfilled, and struggle to be happy. And I'd like to use the work I do with them to illustrate principles that anyone here listening can relate to. Because with them, the affluent women, it's the most obvious what I'm going to talk about. At least that's how I see it.
Right.
This is what has led to my discovery is that quite recently I noticed a remarkable shift in seeing different kinds of clients reaching out to ask for my assistance. And the issues they are now bringing to the table are way more complex and more severe. And that made me wonder why. I found that there's a certain theme that all of the clients I work with now have in common. And this is what I've called the triple dynamic. Now, again, back to the world of the affluent. In the high society circles, there's an unspoken rule that is considered to be not done when you openly, and sometimes not even privately, speak about the more deeper and darker feelings and thoughts that may appear. In those circles, you are trained to keep up appearance, to smile, even when you're falling apart inside. I call this the silent epidemic among the affluent. Their suffering, maybe your suffering, is invisible. Now, I'm not here to criticize that rule. I understand why it came into being and what its function is. What I do want is to point out what I see as being the consequences of such a rule.
Right.
It encourages an attitude in which there's actually no other alternative than suppressing what is not allowed to be felt. And as a result, cultivating a habit of numbing oneself.
Yeah.
This seems to the way more convenient. It is quick, and you have an idea that's all gone and dealt with,
Yeah.
but not really. Now, for you listening and viewing, think about your own upbringing. Were your emotions welcomed? Could you express yourself freely? The people, like parents, family members, teachers, etc., those you found yourself surrounded with when you were little may have been exactly the kind of environment where the habit of numbing has been cultivated in you. Numbing can also come from a sudden, unexpected, negative, impactful, call it traumatic event, in which it was all too much to process all at once. So you just had to push what couldn't be handled in that moment into your subconscious. Sometimes even going straight into your unconscious. So this is the first element of the triple dynamic at play. All that we suppress has become part of what I call, of what is called our conditioning. I call that our negative patterns of behavior in thinking, limiting beliefs, feeling, negative emotions, and the way we act, including the poor choices and decisions we make. I see a direct relationship between the degree to which someone suppresses negative feelings and thoughts and the way this expresses itself in their outer circumstances. Take, for instance, again, the tendency toward numbing. Numbing has various side effects and consequences. It can show up as a burnout, physical illness, or chronic fatigue. Suppressing your feelings takes a lot of energy, I can tell you. But for today, I want to emphasize on one particular side effect, which has to do with a simple principle. The moment you suppress the negative feelings and thoughts you do not want to feel and think, you automatically restrict your ability to experience the pleasant emotions and thoughts you do want to feel and think. This is my explanation for why so many wealthy people who have surrounded themselves with a lifestyle dreams are made of, feel empty, unfulfilled, and unhappy, telling me that they are unable to truly enjoy the richness life has to offer. Now, I know that it may be that what I'm talking about is not for everyone, but it is common. This is commonly what the clients I'm working with currently are reporting back to me about what they are struggling with. And again, listeners and viewers here, see in which of these descriptions you recognize yourself. I hear, I wake up feeling exhausted, more tired than when I got to bed. Or I'm working so hard and still feel unfulfilled. Or oh, I'm in this relationship that drives me crazy. Or I'm just unable to enjoy the good things in life. Or
Yeah.
I have this condition, this disease, and treatments don't have any effect. That's a painful one, right?
Right.
And or this is happening here now, and it is happening time and time again, and I'm fed up with it, but I don't know how to break the cycle. Or I do all this work to change what makes me unhappy, but deep down, nothing seems to make any difference at all. Or all this is driving me to the edge, wondering what's the point of all this? Now, listeners, viewers, have there been moments where you've said or thought something similar? Hmm? Now, I think that we can all agree on the fact that the situation and circumstances we live in nowadays are rapidly intensifying. And one logical explanation is to see the political tension and the threat of war and the economic instability as the cause of it. But what I see is that there is actually another more hidden reason why things are intensifying. And that has to do with the second element of the triple dynamic. And that is the transition into what is called the fifth dimensional way of living that is happening. When I speak about the transition into the fifth dimensional way of living, I'm not talking about something abstract, not something far out there. Let me briefly explain. The fifth dimensional way of living is not something you go to. It's not a place.
Right.
It refers to an inner state of a being. The transition happens within. As I've come to understand it, it is not possible. And if it is, I find it not wise to jump from the 3D reality we've been living in here for centuries straight into 5D. It's like climbing a mountain. The higher you go, the more it is necessary to let go. You cannot take everything that you've gathered at base camp with you to the top. It won't work.
Exactly.
The reason that it is not going to work is because in life, in this life, and if you believe it, in lifetimes, we've built up this conditioning I spoke about earlier, which is, as you can see, greatly disturbing and interfering with the life we are living here in 3D.
Yes.
So if we could take that conditioning, and if we would take that conditioning with us that we've built up within ourselves into 5D, it will again greatly disturb the quality of our new, renewed state of being, as it is already doing now. So what needs to happen is that we first move through the fourth dimension.
Okay.
Moving through the fourth dimension serves various essential functions. One of them is that it is a period in which we have the opportunity to cleanse and clear ourselves. In other words, to release, to resolve, to heal, to transform everything of that conditioning we carry with us. The conditioning that served us well in the past, but over time has become a burden, now hindering and sometimes even totally blocking us from living the life we truly love to live. But,
Right.
and here we touch on the third element of the triple dynamic, here we have a challenge. And that is, and what has to do with the fact that we are created with a conscious, a subconscious, and an unconscious mind. And the characteristic of the sub and unconscious mind is that we have stored things in there, conditioning, of which we are not yet or not anymore conscious of. Now, there are exceptions, but in most cases, we can only change, heal, transform something when we know what it is.
Right.
It's not the opposite. How can we work with something we are not aware of?
Exactly.
Awareness is the first step to being elevated, right?
Exactly.
The question / challenge, therefore, is how can we become conscious of things we are not yet or not anymore conscious of? There is an expression in Sufism that says, everything in this material world is done through mirrors. The function of a mirror is that it's like a road sign. It points at something that wishes to be seen and acknowledged, wishes to be healed, wishes to be released, be free. The synonym for mirror is a catalyst. And there are various forms those mirrors, catalysts, can appear and show up in your life. It can come as a certain situation or circumstance you find yourself in. It can come in an encounter with a specific kind of person or group of people. It can come through a physical condition, and it can come in an imbalance in our emotional and mental state. For instance, being burned out. Now, here's the thing. The world has changed. We have changed. And since, due to the working of the fourth dimension, issues are rapidly becoming more complex and more severe, it requires, on one hand, updated and more refined methods and tools, as well as, on the other hand, the creation of new ones. The journey into 5D can be seen as one that leads us from our human mind, as being the master, into our heart and soul, making the mind our servant. The language of our mind are words. The language of our heart is sound. And for that reason, I've developed a new sound healing technology that specifically is designed to help clients to identify and transform conditioning that is stored in their unconscious. And since the circumstances we live in have changed, and the complexity of issues we encounter is increasing, in order to properly address and resolve what is causing our suffering, a deeper transformational journey is required. And this implies two things. This needs care, and it will take some time and effort to do this well. And it will not always be an easy ride, but definitely one that leads to change that sticks, the kind of change that is long-lasting. Now, from experience, I know that the moment I say these words out loud, that a deeper transformational journey is needed, for some listeners, almost immediately a sense of fear and or resistance may bubble up. And that is so understandable. For instance, imagine your passion is to dance on a high rope in one of those big circus tops. And I come along and say, hey, you know what? I know one here nearby and I can take you there. And then after arrival, I show you the ladder and say, come on, climb up the ladder and do your thing without giving you any instructions. You having no training, never done it before. What do you think? Would you start to feel some fear and resistance doing it?
Obviously.
Of course,
Right.
the moment, but here's the thing. However, the moment I explain that there are 3 types of resistances and how to handle that best, and when I explain the know-hows, giving you the knowledge, help you to develop certain skills you need, hand over the right method to use, to put together a solid self-care plan and inspire you to engage in a daily training, I see over and over again in doing it like this, that the fear and resistance in the client I find sitting opposite of me is greatly reduced. What it all comes down to is, and this is a good thing to remember, before you dive into such a deeper transformational journey, make sure you establish the proper circumstances and conditions to do this work in a safe and secure way. To stay in the metaphor, make sure to hook up your safety net first.
Before you fall, before you take the leap. Wow.
Exactly.
Wow, Dr. Christian, that was a lot to take in. However, I think that it's definitely a conversation that we truly need to delve a little into, a lot more into. So I guess my first question for you would be, most of my listeners would not consider themselves in like a crisis mode, right? So they're functioning, they're achieving, they're checking all of the boxes, they're doing all of the things. They're basically surviving, right? So from your perspective, knowing the three elements that you just described, what are some early emotional signs or things that come up for someone who is in this life and on paper they look successful, it looks like they have it all together, but they have this bubble in the inside, the twinkling, that does not feel fulfilled? Like, what are some of the early emotional signs that someone can actually look for to know that they're staying in well past when they should have started this transformation?
Feeling exhausted.
The exhaustion.
Waking up feeling more tired than when you got to bed.
Mhm.
And that is come back to the numbing part that I explained,
Right.
because numbing takes so much energy. And numbing is, particularly with high performing women, a very logical and understandable um, habit to develop, because there's so much demand, there is so much urge to, and longing often, because also out of passion, to give it your best, to be at on the top of your game, to deliver high performances that are expected of you. Now, let's say just before you go a meeting where you present a service to a big client, and 5 minutes before you open up your email and there is a very, very unpleasant and very, very upsetting email coming in from some other client who has not listened to your advice, did it themselves, and now find themselves in trouble and then start to blame you for not mentioning it. And all you know these situations, right?
Right. Exactly.
And then, and but the most natural thing that happens at that moment is, by reading it, your state of excellence drops. You fall into reactions that are very understandable, and therefore you slide into what is called a lesser resourceful state. Another way to say it is a lower vibrational state. But in
Right.
5 minutes, you have to open up the door, you have to go in the room, you have to give that excellent performance. So what you do, you numb it all, you stuff it into your unconscious or subconscious, and you ta-da! And it
Yeah.
is the numbing and putting it back into the subconscious. And then the thing is to leave it there, because I can imagine situations that, like what I mentioned earlier, in case of a sudden, unexpected, negative, impactful, traumatic event, you just have to stuff the overwhelm. There's happening so much. You cannot deal with it at once. So you have to store it in your subconscious to deal with what you need to do and need to deal with. The thing, though,
Definitely.
is it often turns into the storing into your subconscious from a temporary kind of feature into a permanent solution. Hmm.
Okay. Yes, I wholeheartedly understand that. So right now, well, beautiful. I just want you to hold whatever you're feeling right now, because if this conversation is stirring something in you, it matters. We're going to be right back. Before we get into today's episode, let me share something with you that I use personally in my business. Today's episode is sponsored by Go High Level. And yes, I am a proud affiliate because I don't recommend anything that I don't use myself. If you're a coach, consultant, service based entrepreneur who's tired of juggling 5, 6, 7 different platforms to try to efficiently run your business, then Go High Level is for you. Go High Level helps you centralize your systems, CRMs, emails, text messaging, calls, calendars, webinars, even automation, all in one place. For me, time freedom is non negotiable. Legacy doesn't require burnout. And Go High Level helps me build a business that works with my life and not against it. If you want to explore it for yourself, you can learn more by using the affiliate link in the show notes. Now let's get back to the yellow. Okay, so Dr. Christiaan, before the break, we were talking about the emotional numbness that comes with having to always be what I call high vibrational, always having to perform, all of those things. Now, you've lived both an outward success and an inward emptiness. How can success itself become a hiding place that kind of keeps people from addressing the emptiness, addressing the things that they are not emotionally fulfilled? I talk very often with the statement of you should just be grateful, right? And that seems to hide itself inside of success. So because from someone from your perspective, how can success itself be so easily the hiding place that most people kind of stay in even though they're not emotionally happy?
Are you prepared to go straight into what I feel that might be going on there?
Um, yeah, I mean, if that is something that's going to help them understand why this looks so different for women that who are successful versus people who are not, because success usually is a an outward gauge, right? Or someone's idea of success is usually an outward gauge of inward success. But usually, what happens in women, especially women of color, when you've checked all of the boxes, but you still know that there's something missing, I guess I just want to understand, why is it so easy for success to be the place where people sit even though they're not emotionally fulfilled? So for instance, if you are to stub your toe, right? You're walking, you hit your toe, right? It's going to be very conscious of you when you walk in that same area that you stubbed your toe. But if you had not done that, you would walk that same route, do the same thing, keep going. And success is one of those areas where you can just kind of keep going because it camouflages everything.
Exactly.
Right. So why is it just the level of success by societal standards usually that makes it so much easier for people to hide? Why do people not choose their emotional happiness over what looks like success on paper? Is probably an easier question.
Well, actually, it is a more difficult question. But let me first start, because I hear two things. I hear the last part that you are bringing into that um, it is kind of easier to go into the emotional realm. And the first part is about why stay particularly successful women into their role longer than is good for them.
Right.
The way I see it is, and again, this is my way of seeing it, right? So if you here listening or viewing opinion or a different experience, that is very fine, and that's something I do respect. But for my experience, working on myself and exploring taking myself as the laboratory, as you, Dr. Kimberly, mentioned in the beginning, what I found is that the emptiness, let's take that for example, is already present in us before we start to strive to become successful.
Right.
It is actually the striving for something that gives us success is caused, and the first core driver to go that direction is the emptiness we already have from the start.
Right. So trying to fulfill something, that void.
Yes, but
Got
then
it.
the kind of problem is here that when they are actually succeeding and see the status, see the acknowledgement from others coming towards the appreciation, when they see the millions roll into their bank accounts and they see the possessions they can gather themselves with, the third mansion, and you name it, those things are not wrong. But this is the thing. When it becomes something you hold on to and you base your identity of who you are, you based it on those kind of external accomplishments you've achieved, then it becomes, in that sense, I would say, an issue because, first and foremost, it will never ever, the outer accomplishments, the status and the wealth, fulfill you.
Okay. Yeah. And so, and I know that you talk a great deal about survival habits that once really protected us, but now later on down the line imprison us. So can you explain how that really shows up for women who've stayed like far too long in careers, in identities, or even their own individual expectations of themselves? How does that show up, those survival habits?
That you start or already see yourself do things or say things that you actually do not want to say or do, but you do it anyway.
So you're almost on autopilot, is what
Exactly.
I'm understanding.
That
So
is
that's
what
how
causes the
survival.
imprisonment. Exactly. That's
I'm
what
sorry.
causes the imprisonment.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So it's almost like autopilot. You've done it, you've been there, you've stood in that space so long that it's just second nature. Even though that's not really what your heart desires, what your heart wishes to say, you're just it's on autoplay.
Because
Oh,
you've based your identity on it. So
right.
parts of you are have taken that as your circle of comfort. It is familiar. It gives you the feeling of hold, of warmth, of support. And here's the other part of what you asked me earlier, the kind of going into the emotional layers,
Hmm.
because that is what is needed to untangle these unconscious habits that has taken us hostage and imprisoned us over time. And that is that it comes back to the fear and resistance I talked about earlier. The idea of turning the eyes inward and going on that journey of what I call self-reflection
Hmm.
is greatly disturbing to some part of us because it is unknown what is going to happen, unknown what they will find in there. Can I handle it? Will it be pleasant? Oh, it's probably way too painful. Or um, when I go that route and I do the things to change what sometimes some people already know what they need to change, right?
Right.
Who will I become? Will my friends still be my friends? Will my relationship change or whatever?
Yeah.
And that is what causes the mostly the fear and the resistance about going within.
Yeah. So, and one of the things that we see, one of the biggest hindrances that we see for women staying too long, that's in relationships and in identities, all of the things, is fear because they've stayed so long in one identity, they're not sure of what it looks like on the other side of that. So that makes complete sense. So how do you help someone who sits with the uncertainty without rushing back to familiarity? Like how do you help them embrace the part that they're not sure about and not just fall back into habit, fall back into survival mode, what has kept them safe for all of these years and appears for all logic and purposes to be successful?
Yes. So this what we're talking about is it is actually a very delicate and very complex matter, which requires a very specific and precise approach. And my role as a mentor is to simplify it in such a way that it comes as in bite-sized pieces. So I hope that in my answer, I will manage to do that. But still, it is necessary to say that what I'm answering is part of a more complex dynamic. See it as a spider web for a spider. It has these long threads, and it has these short threads in between the long ones that keeps it all together. And the spider has been kind of caught up in his own web. And to disentangle it in the process of working with a client, I'm mostly and firstly looking at after I do the one thing I mentioned in a minute, I look at the long threads that holds the web together, and then slowly work with them in letting the long threads go, and then ultimately the web disappears, and putting a new web that serves them best into place. But it starts first and foremost with creating the proper circumstances and conditions for them to feel safe, secure, to do that deeper inner work.
Right. Okay.
So
Wow.
when that's done, and why it is necessary is, and this might be helpful to share because it is shedding light on why at certain times we feel imprisoned by those habits that once served us, and why it is we do all those kind of things, the traditional methods and the familiar routine, daily routines, and all these kind of things, and then and to our own disappointment and utterly frustration, just have to admit that all these kind of things that we have done sometimes for years, and I'm talking about my own experience, come to the conclusion that actually deep down, something has actually not made any difference. And the reason of that is this. There is so much emphasis on the working on the subconscious, working on our mindset, doing affirmations, and to change all the beliefs, and also work with the releasing the negative emotions that are in the subconscious, and to reprogram the you name it. The thing here is this. And that is something that I've at some point discovered, because I did all these things for years and I worked my butt off to reprogram my subconscious, and I didn't get
You and me
myself to
both.
where I really wanted to be. And I was thinking, what the heck is happening
What's
here?
wrong with me?
Say that again?
What's wrong with me? Jeez.
Yes, yes. And then comes, and oh, this is so recognizable, because then comes the shame, and then comes the guilt of, look at all the people who don't have what I have. I have no right to feel that way. And then they get even more in that negative spiral, negative talk, and all these kind of things. Blah, 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 blah. And this is the kind of thing that we are actually working, and what might be happening here, and that is that there is the necessity has now come in what we experience nowadays to access our unconscious. The unconscious and the role of the unconscious, as I find it, has been greatly underestimated and greatly ignored. And this is exactly nowadays that is the area we need to access. But there's a note of caution here. It cannot be done by yourself alone. And this is why, and this may be a kind of a side path, but before I forget it, I just have to mention, in our unconscious, that is where we find our ego structure. This is the circle of comfort, the building blocks of our conditioning, which makes us feel secure and safe and well. When we start to work on putting that slowly dismantling it, it can firstly greatly be experienced as be feeling disoriented and all these kind of things. Now, there is a way to prevent it, and please remind me in a moment that I mentioned this, because it comes back to the title of this episode. But let me say first, why the importance of the working on the unconscious is so important. In the unconscious, you will find the root causes of all that is creating the unpleasant situations that you find yourself in. The things that make you do or say that you don't want to say and do at all, but you find yourself saying and doing it anyway.
Yeah,
And that
and
has
I
to do with it.
and I'm
That has
sorry,
to
and
do
I'm sorry to
with,
interject
yes,
just for the interest of time.
yes,
Um,
yes.
and the unconscious is not something that we speak of often. Very few people actually. You hear a lot about subconscious, but you don't hear a whole lot about the unconscious. And so the way that you break it down is phenomenal. Okay, so now, Dr. Christiaan, for the woman listening who feels empty, right? But doesn't really know how to put a finger on it, like doesn't know how to give it a name. What is one step, or I would even go out on a limb and say one compassionate step, right? She can actually take to reconnect herself from where she currently is without blowing up like her entire life overnight. So without her walking in and saying, forget it, I quit. I quit the job, I quit the relationship, I quit the family, I do it all. So without her doing that, in the absence
No,
of
please. Yes,
that,
don't do it. Yeah.
tell me one compassionate step that she can just take, her and her conscious, subconscious, and unconscious, to reconnect to herself.
Consider working with a mentor. Find someone who has the knowledge and the experience to guide you in doing that. Because it is probably very hard, if not impossible, to do what you're longing for by yourself alone. And that has to do with what I said earlier. The subconscious and unconscious is a realm in which you have stored things in there of which you are not yet or not anymore conscious of. And before the break, I mentioned this kind of element of the unconscious. This is the thing to take in consideration. In the unconscious is stored the root causes, which work as the core driver that spark, fuel, activate the habits that are situated in your subconscious to do the things that you don't want to do, but do it anyway. So when you do all the work to change the habits and the kind of things that are in your subconscious, and you find yourself that at some point it jumps back again, it's because of the root cause is still in place and doing its work as it has always done. So the best way to change it all this is to, by the help of someone else, to identify what is the root cause in your unconscious and change it from there within. Then the impact and the influence it has on the habits that you want to change becomes less and less and less and less and less. So that's the first thing. The other thing is the only thing, as I see it, that really of actually the most important, let me say it like this, the most important thing to go in such a process of identifying the root cause and there make the changes is to have something that you can hold on to other than your career, your job, the money, the status, you name it. And that is to find and to reestablish a more direct conscious connection with what is called your essence, your true nature, your soul.
Who you are
And
to your core, basically.
that's your true self.
Yes.
Now, it's more complex than I say it, but for the sake of conversation, I call it your self, higher self, your soul.
Right.
And this is one of the first things that I offer to the clients I work with to reestablish that more direct conscious connection. It works like You are in this boat of life, and you are bumped by the waves and the winds go back and forth, and sometimes you even don't know where you are and where you're going. But if on the shore you put that self as a lighthouse, as point of reference, then you go this way, they can this way, but you always have this kind of holding, this kind of security in yourself that this is the way I'm going.
Right. So let your higher self be your lighthouse. So regardless of what storm, whatever you face, which direction you're going, you're always going to have a focal point. Wow, Dr. Christiaan, I love that. I love that. So, Dr. Christiaan, before we close, I would love for you to tell our listeners how they can actually take the next steps with you.
Uh-huh. Yes. Oh, thank you for that, giving me that opportunity. And this is what I would like to do, to offer you, listeners, viewers, this takeaway. Whenever you want to change something, or you are confronted with a difficult situation, the mirror, what most likely happens is that it has a negative impact on how you feel and think. I gave an example early on. It makes you slide into that lower vibrational, let's say, non-resourceful state. Being in fear, being in fight, flight, or freeze state is an example of it. And this is the last thing you want to see happening, because in those kind of situations, what actually you need is to have the energy and the vitality that gives you the clarity of mind and the strength, determination, whatever, to deal with it. What you need is something that helps you to do exactly that. Something that helps you shift from a non-resource or lower vibrational state into a state of excellence
And is
as
that
quickly as
something that
possible.
you've created? And I'm sorry, is that something that you've created that you're able
Exactly.
to provide to them?
Exactly. And that is for anyone listening here that feels that, yeah, this is something you could use. I'd love to offer you this as a small gift. It's a short downloadable ebook called The 5 Steps to Transform Any Negative Feeling or Thought Anytime, Anywhere, in 7 minutes or less. I created it because when I look at my own life, I carried negative emotions and thoughts with me way longer than needed, simply because no one ever showed me that all this can be transformed much quicker and even when needed instantly in the moment. Now, the advantage of these 5 steps, this 5 steps ritual is that it prevents you from suppressing of what you don't like to feel or think, and instead to turn those feelings and thoughts, those negative ones, in the ones that energize, empower, and uplift you. So you'll find a link in the show notes. It's a simple download and you'll receive it by email. In addition, for those of you who have it all, yet still feel unfulfilled and sense the desire to take that deeper step, I'm also offering you a complimentary From Pointless to Purpose treasure map consultation. It's a 1 hour conversation where you can experience how I work, ask your questions directly, and explore whether I'm the right person to assist you in making the changes you want or need to make. And just to be clear, this is a no pressure consultation. There's
Okay.
no obligation. It's simply an invitation to explore.
Wow, how generous of Dr. Christiaan. I love that. I love that. So not only is he going have not only has he created this powerful resource, and again, it's called the 5 steps to transform any negative feeling or thought anytime, anywhere in 7 minutes or less. Which again, the link will be in the show notes, but he's also offering just for our listeners a complimentary 1 hour consultation where you actually get to explore these things. I thank you so much, Dr. Christiaan. That is very, very generous of you. So I really want to leave you ladies with this. Okay. Staying too long doesn't just cost you time. It costs you emotions, truth, liveliness, aliveness, and self trust. Because if you feel empty and it doesn't necessarily mean something is wrong with you, it just means something in your life has expired. You're somewhere where you shouldn't be. You're standing where you shouldn't stand. You're holding on to something you should have long released. The question isn't whether you can stay, because of course it looks like success on the outside. It's whether staying is actually costing you who you were conditioned to be. And we don't want that. I would love for you all to give a very special thank you to Dr. Christiaan Oranje. I have all of his information, all of his socials, all of that will be included as a part of the show notes. Thank you so much, Dr. Christiaan, for coming and hanging out and chatting with me today. Is
It
there
has been
any
such a pleasure.
final thought that you'd like to leave with our ladies before you go and before we wrap up here?
In essence, you're not broken. In essence, you are already the one you want to be right now, right here. There might be, however, in your human self, things that have happened that you carry with you that have been broken. And everything that has been broken can heal. It is scientifically proven that when you break your actual bone, the moment it grows back together again, on that spot it's stronger than before. And one other kind of metaphor to you that has helped me in the most difficult times, and that is the metaphor of the actual oyster. Life sometimes blows grains of worthless sand towards our way, but by staying with it and dealing with it in the accurate, proper, appropriate, correct way, you end up eventually holding a beautiful, precious pearl.
Oh,
I thank you so
goodness.
much.
I love it. I love it. Oh, Dr. Christiaan, it has been so much fun talking to you today. Thank you so much again for gracing us with your presence. Thank you so much again for sharing your wisdom and all of your knowledge. The complimentary consultation, 1 hour. And listen, this is top value, you guys. So take advantage. And we're going to make sure that we put it all in the show notes with you. So thank you so much for giving us and having a conversation that is not easily had. And I thank you for that. So beautiful. Thank you again for tuning in to She's Beyond Elevated. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a woman who is quietly holding on to something that she should have let go of a long time ago. So I leave you with this. You weren't born to blend in. You were built to break ceilings, break out of boxes, and break generational curses. Stay bold, stay brilliant, stay beyond elevated. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, beautiful. Thank you for tuning in to She's Beyond Elevated with Dr. Kimberly Dunlap. If this episode spoke to your soul, share it with another woman ready to rise. Remember, elevation isn't a destination, it's a decision. Keep shining, keep walking in purpose, and I'll see you in the next episode.